Chapter 76, The Other Visitors, Antony's POV. Antony had to admit that he was relieved when Theo and Felix finally left. True, listening to the last few chapters of the ridiculously soppy book had been entertaining, and there were worse things than feeling Hanyu and Theo curled up on either side of him, but in his belly-down position, he just couldn't forget why they were all there. Hanyu dozed off not long after he finished the book. The poor man must have been exhausted after the chaos of the last few days. It took a moment for the others to notice, but when he let out a loud snore, Felix and Theo bade Antony a whispered farewell and tiptoed out of the room. Once they shut the door carefully behind themselves, he could finally breathe. Hanyu snored again and shifted, curling more tightly against Antony's side. His face was almost entirely obscured by all that yellow hair, and Antony had to fight down the urge to brush it aside. Why should he want to peek? He already knew what Hanyu looked like as he slept, all flushed cheeks and parted lips and, most likely, drool. He was being absurd. Hanyu muttered a little and shifted again. Antony tensed, fearing that one of his arms might shoot out and strike his back, but the young man only cuddled closer, tucking his head against Antony's arm. Pain twisted in his gut as he stared at his sleeping offering. Hanyu was so soft, so vulnerable. Not just in his sleep, either. He displayed his hurts and his feelings as if there were no risks involved, no reasons not to let the whole world see his heart laid bare. His actions rarely involved even the slightest calculation. How was anybody supposed to protect someone like that? But he would. He had to. There was no other option. This wonderful, infuriating man was too precious for anything else. Precious. Antony glanced down at his long-abandoned book, which was all about the mating and nesting habits of the small green dragons of Herda. Fine, then. He might as well be one monster as another. He would be a dragon, and this man would be his golden horde. It was almost a relief when a soft, tentative knock at the door pulled him from his fanciful thoughts. Who could that be? He hated to poke Hanyu awake, but he didn't care to get in trouble with Julia for ripping out his stitches again. Hanyu? Hanyu, the door! Brown eyes, bleary from sleep, opened to him, and there was that dangerous soft twisting in his stomach at the sight. He was saved by another knock, even fainter than the first. Oh! Hanyu flopped out of the bed and stumbled away. A moment later, Antony heard Thad's voice, unusually hesitant. Hello, Hanyu. I'm so sorry if I'm interrupting, but I wasn't sure. Did I get the day wrong yesterday? Or did you change your mind? It's perfectly all right if you changed your mind. I just wasn't sure. Shit! It's my fault, Thad, Antony yelled, cursing his inability to get up and go out to explain everything. I forgot to tell him. Come in here, why don't you? Antony craned his neck so he could see the doorway, just in time to meet two confused faces. Hanyu, Thad had offered to meet with you yesterday to teach you about fish if you wanted. In all the confusion, I forgot to tell you. Hanyu's eyes widened. He seemed fully awake as he gasped and gave an excited little bounce. Really? He cried. That's wonderful! I have so many questions! Now it was Thad whose eyes looked ready to pop out. You mean it? You're really interested? Of course! Hanyu kept bouncing on his toes. Antony's told me about so many strange animals on land. I can't imagine how interesting the ones in the ocean must be. At the mention of Antony's name, Thad's gaze returned to him. Oh, yes, I meant to ask. Why are you bandaged? Damn. When Julia promised to keep something to herself, she meant it. Antony relaxed a little. I was just clumsy, he assured the other vampire. Nothing to fret about. Do you two want to have your lesson right now? Hanyu's face pinched, first at his excuse, then at his suggestion. The young man folded his arms over his chest. His expression was probably supposed to be stern, but he mostly just looked adorably rumpled after his nap. But you're still stuck in bed, he protested. What if you need me to fetch something for you or answer the door again? I don't think I'll be getting any more visitors today, Antony assured him. That wasn't strictly true. He suspected that he would have at least one more, but he also suspected that Hanyu would not react well to that visitor, and further trouble was the last thing he needed. Really, this chance to send his offering to join Thad's one-man fish cult was the best thing that could have happened. I've got a book, he continued, gesturing down to the abandoned volume. I don't need food, water, or assistance to get to the washroom. If I do need anything, it can wait until Julia comes to change my bandages. That'll be in just a few hours, after all. Hanyu didn't look convinced, but Thad jumped in. It really would be the perfect time, you know. I need to release the strawfish in my tank tonight. We could study her together until then. Strawfish? Hanyu asked, wavering. That was all Thad needed to start rhapsodizing. They're beautiful. They have these lovely yellow cycloid scales and the most gorgeous fan-shaped pectoral fins and venomous spines on their dorsal fins. That's what they're named for. And venomous spines? Paling, Hanyu clapped a hand over his mouth. Oh, forgive me, my lord. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm so glad you did. It helps me know what interests you. Thad smiled. Yes, venomous spines, so I'm afraid you won't be able to help me put her back. I'm not sure what a prick from her spines would do to you. Goodness knows, it gives me an unpleasant time. Paralyzed me for a whole day once, which Julia and Cloelia were not pleased about. But that was a mature specimen, and our little sweetheart is just an adolescent, and there's no reason you can't watch. A single glance at Hanyu's face was all it took for Antony to know that he was going. The young man was practically vibrating in place with his desire to go see the pecker fins and poisonous spines. Still, he made a final appeal. Do you have to put her back tonight, my lord? I'm afraid so. I've had her for almost 3 days, and with the winds we're having, we'll be leaving her habitat soon. Go on, Antony urged. I'll be fine. Anyhow, I can see you've got 100 questions now, and I won't be able to answer any of them. Hanyu slumped, defeated. Well, all right then. Thank you, my lord. When do you want me back? Whenever you're done. There's no rush. You can walk him back, can't you, Thad? Thaddeus grinned and swept a bow. It would be a pleasure. That was easy enough to believe. If Hanyu was excited, Thad was ecstatic. Antony wasn't sure he'd ever seen the little man glowing like this. His round face was practically reduced to a web of smile lines, and for once he didn't look so plain. Hanyu could do much, much worse than to fall in love with the man as well as his fish. They were chattering to each other before the door even shut behind them, Hanyu inquiring eagerly about other poisonous fish, and Thad beginning a litany that would probably occupy them for hours. Antony would be lucky if he ever saw his offering again. He chuckled, ignoring the painful twist the thought produced. He went back to his own book, but it was hard to concentrate. He kept wondering how much time had passed, whether Marcus was going to come before Hanyu got back, whether he was going to come at all, what Antony would say to him if he did. It was a relief when a knock at the door dispelled all that waiting at last. Come in, Antony called. Even if he hadn't been expecting Marcus all day, he would have immediately recognized his lover's heavy steps. His gut rolled in something strangely like panic at the sound. That's stupid. He's not going to do anything to me. We just had some roughness, that's all. Hello, darling. It was Marcus's softest, gentlest voice, and it drove away the fear and let Antony relax. Still feeling a little rough, are you? Not really, but you know how Julia fusses. I've heard. The mattress shifted as Marcus settled next to him. I'm sorry Theo got her involved, Danny. I know how important it is to you that we keep things private. Antony needed to tread carefully here. He wanted to agree, to lean against his lover and moan about how naked and humiliated he'd been feeling all day. But he didn't want to provoke Marcus into demanding that he punish Theo. The most he dared was a non-committal hum. I hate to see you so shaken, Marcus sighed. How do you suppose she found out? Antony worked to keep his voice level and unhurried. No doubt she just overheard my caterwauling. I wasn't being very quiet. Laughing, Marcus traced a finger over his forearm. No, I don't suppose you were. I blame that awful little obsidian knife of yours. That thing hurts. It wouldn't be much of a punishment if you liked it, darling, Marcus teased. Antony huffed. Fine, fair enough. But you went a little far, Marcus. Julia said I was close to a feeding frenzy. I could have attacked a sow. Oh, you wouldn't have. Marcus's voice was so sure and dismissive, it felt like a reprieve. Julia's so dramatic. She doesn't have any faith in you at all. Antony had never heard anyone call Julia dramatic before. He could almost have laughed, but this interaction still felt too delicate to risk that sort of display. Instead, he turned his head so he could see Marcus's face. His lover's expression was soft and concerned, his big dark eyes overflowing with care. When he saw Antony looking back at him, the worry lines in his beautiful face eased. "There you are," he crooned. "I was afraid you were hiding from me." Maybe? Antony really wasn't sure. Usually he could relax right into his lover's comfort after one of these episodes, but today, where had everything gone so wrong? Marcus finally broke the pained silence. "You're right, you know. I did go a bit too far. I'm so sorry, Annie." Antony looked back into his eyes, startled. His shock intensified when he saw that Marcus's eyes were wet. "Oh, goodness!" In his sudden panic, he sounded a little like Thad. "Don't worry about it, darling. It's fine." "It isn't," his lover said dolefully. "I got carried away. You must hate me." "I don't." "It would make sense if you did," sighed Marcus. "Everybody else does. Even Felix doesn't like me anymore. You all think I'm cruel and heartless." "I don't think that." Antony awkwardly maneuvered his arm so he could clutch Marcus's hands, ignoring the pain as the movement pulled his stitches. "You're my lover." Marcus squeezed his hand carefully, but shook his head. "I don't deserve to be your lover." "Of course you do. You don't let me get away with manipulating you. You have faith that I can handle things. You don't make me explain myself all the time. You make me strong." Antony tried to remember what he'd said the last time Marcus got like this, what had helped him shake his lover out of his despair. He thought he might have said that Marcus made him feel safe, but that wasn't exactly it. Marcus made him feel that he was strong enough not to need any kind of protection or safety. Definitely no coddling. When Marcus cut into his whirling thoughts with a "you deserve better," Antony couldn't restrain a snort of bitter laughter. "Darling, we both know that isn't true. I'll say I'll forgive you if that's what you want, but you don't owe me any apologies." Marcus sighed and settled against the mattress. It was so strange seeing him there in what had become Hanyu's spot. When Antony's eyes were closed, if he imagined warmth and breathing, he could almost pretend it was Hanyu sprawled beside him. Envisioning the young man's open, harmless face gave him enough courage to venture in a whisper, "Why did you get so upset?" He flinched as Marcus groaned, but when his lover spoke, his tone was self-deprecating. "It's embarrassing to admit, but I guess I owe you the truth," Marcus sighed. "And the truth is that I'm jealous." Is the simplest, most reasonable explanation possible, but Antony still found himself astonished. He hadn't expected his lover to admit it. "Jealous? Of Hanyu?" he managed. "I know it's ridiculous," Marcus moaned, rolling to his back and putting his hands over his eyes. "But you're so fond of him. He's even sharing your bed now, unless you're keeping his cot in some hidden cupboard. You're acting so differently and fawning all over this human that, well, not to be rude, but I really can't see the appeal. It's like I don't even know you anymore." Antony was struck speechless for a moment. Marcus wasn't much given for talking about his feelings, and Antony was moved by his sudden openness. He grabbed one of his lover's hands and pulled it to his lips. "Darling, I never meant to make you feel that way," said Antony, trying to make his tone reassuring. "It's true, I've been, realizing some things recently. There are changes I think we need to make in the way we run our ship, but that doesn't have to change anything between us." Marcus's response was tight and frustrated. "It already is, though. How many fights have we had about this one measly human? You scold me for even looking at him. You enlist him in telling me lies. You take his punishments. You're acting like you and he are a team, and I'm your enemy. And you're bringing my own attendant into it." How is a sow a part of this?" Antony sputtered. "You were the one who wanted me to bed him. Why are you jealous of him now?" "I'm not jealous of a sow," Marcus grated out. "That's not the point. He's just another example of the hold your pet has over you. One sad look from that oaf and you're barging in and trying to control how I handle my own household." Antony was getting confused. "Wait, you're angry that I told you not to kill him? That's hardly an unreasonable—" "I already said that's not the point," Marcus snapped. Anyhow, you're the one who said you wanted to kill him last night, not me. I didn't. I never. Antony stopped, barely resisting the urge to shake his head and try and clear it. Why did fights always make him so muddled? I didn't want to hurt him, but I was losing too much blood, and Julia said... Damn it, Antony! Marcus exploded, his fist striking the wall with a bang that made Antony jump. I said I was sorry! Why do you always have to make yourself the victim? I didn't mean to... Marcus rolled off the bed. I can't talk to you when you're like this. I'm going above deck later tonight for some fresh air. Maybe you can come find me then, if you're done lying around pretending you're too weak to move. A tear stripped its chilly track down Antony's cheek and splashed onto the coverlet. He hadn't even noticed that his eyes were filling. I'm sorry, he managed, his voice high and warbling and so fucking weak, but the slamming of the door informed him that it was too late. Marcus was gone.